Hope and Patience with Amelia Rope, a podcast about business, well-being and chocolate.
Hello and welcome to our latest episode of Hope and Patience. It's wonderful to have you here. The joy with today's show is that we don't have to wait until the chocolate break to talk chocolate. As you probably know by now, my previous chapter was at the helm of Amelia Rope Chocolate. I had ambitious plans for it, but I didn't flip the coin in the direction I'd wished for, unlike our guest. You'll hear more about my story in the Christmas special. Now, if you've been watching Channel 5's recent series of Chocolate Unwrapped, you will have seen a snapshot into our guest. He is a charming and approachable dynamo in the chocolate world and has definitely flipped the coin to land well. Pretty much anyone in the UK chocolate industry would like to catch a sprinkle of his business fairy dust. He is Angus Thirlwell, CEO and co-founder with Peter Harris of the iconic UK chocolate brand Hotel Chocolat. From a chocolate tasting club with 100,000 members in the early 1990s, this effective duo have built up a business which has a turnover of around 136 million and listed on AIM, the London Junior Stock Market. So welcome to H&P, Angus.
Thank you, Amelia. Delighted to be chatting with you.
Would you share with us how your previous chapters have led to the creation of Hotel Chocolat?
I was very lucky to grow up in an entrepreneurial household. My father always made business look really exciting, and it came off him in sort of spade loads when he came home. And I suppose there was a sort of romanticism about business, which I was very lucky to be imbued with at an early age. And it depends how far back you want to go on this. But
I want to go all the way back, Angus, because I think it all ties in. I'm sorry. Back to your days of film club society.
Okay. Well, yes, I went to quite a sort of relaxed and very sporty boys' boarding school in the now famous Barnard Castle. And some older boys were leaving and wanted somebody to take over the film society. So I said I would do it. I've always been really interested in film. And I did it with my best friend, Paddy. And we pretty soon realised that this could be quite exciting because we could get access to films from a rental company in Wardour Street who'd send them in big reels to us, and we could show them in the chemistry labs free of charge. But we could also put posters up around the school selling tickets, for example, Susan George, in Straw Dogs, sort of epic films like that. And in addition to that, we could ask people to subscribe ahead for, a term at a time on the basis that we would show X many films. So we soon had so much, like 50p pieces and cash, that we had to get into money laundering and try and find ways to get rid of it all. But anyway, that was, an early introduction into, I suppose, advertising, subscription, and the power of a bit of imagination as well. I suppose the next real turning point was when I was at University of Sheffield and doing French and economics. And in year 3 out of 4 years, the idea was to spend it in France. And I asked if I could get a job instead of being attached to a university in France. And so I was allowed to, and I managed to get a job in a little high-tech company in Lille in the north of France. I had to quickly learn what they were doing, try and get a shape on it. And then after the end of the year, they begged me to stay. And I didn't want to go back to university because I found what I really liked doing. Yeah, and I did another year, and then unfortunately, me and the boss sort of fell out spectacularly. And I just came back to England and got a job in a similar field, and that's where I met my business partner, who's still my business partner, Peter Harris. We set up this little business making packs of promotional peppermints, which sounds bonkers now, but it was the most ridiculously niche idea ever in the world of confectionery. And we got the business built up to, I think, a couple of £1 million of sales, and we were just, mint. And a lot of our customers, after the first couple of years, started saying, what have you got next, guys? We love your mints. We really like you, but, you must have something else. And we started researching chocolate. So we brought chocolate into our range, initially in a pure business-to-business sense. And that really added something. And that then led to wanting to create a consumer-facing idea. And the first one was fast delivered chocolates through the letterbox with a message card. And that was a business we had a terrible name for, called Choc Express, because we didn't have any marketing budget at the time. And it was the early days of the internet, and it's sort of worked, but it was really tough to build it up. And what we found was that people would typically use us to send chocolates to somebody and then do it again a year later. And that's a long time to wait for another order from a customer.
Mm.
So there was a bit of a problem with that model. And, we were just scratching our heads thinking, okay, how can we stay in touch with our customers, on a more regular basis? And that's where the idea came for the Chocolate Tasting Club, which was based on what I'd seen happen when we were making new recipes up and we needed to sort of, test and approve whether they were liked by a wide audience. So that really worked a lot better than the delivered gift business. And we found that we could, really sell the idea. People liked being part of a community. They liked the surprise of something new and different arriving all the time. And they liked the adherence to a set of values. We didn't use any nasties, anything artificial. Yeah, that really was the big growth driver for the business for, a long time.
Okay, so Angus, so then sort of rolling into how Hotel Chocolat, the brand, came about.
The next stage really was that we realized that we had some successful business models, but we didn't have a great brand. We were outgrowing where we were, and we wanted to have a really, really good brand name. And so I drew on my experience in France, where I'd heard French people, particularly French women, say chocolat. And it came down to a promise of escapism, that special time when you're transported because of great chocolate to somewhere else in your mind, and it makes you feel great. So finding a word that would represent that was really hard, but eventually I found hotel and put that with chocolat. So that was a really huge turning point, and also enabled us to be able to hoist a name above a space and call it Hotel Chocolat, and invite people in and give them a taste of what the chocolate recipe we're working on, and bring some warmth and storytelling, and that was how we started to piece together a strong brand with a direct to consumer model, multi-channel model.
Angus, we're obviously in the COVID-19 world. How did the first lockdown in the UK affect you, and also globally? Because it's not just you being based in the UK, you've got your stores, your expansion plan in the US and Japan. So how did you operate?
When you're put to the test, you find out if you have strong values in your business. And we had the most existential threat to us from the first UK lockdown, so close to Easter. We had all our Easter eggs and little city bunnies and everything all made and shipped out to our 100+ locations up and down the UK. And then with very short notice, literally a couple of weeks out from Easter, 3 weeks out from Easter, we had to close all our locations. And in fact, we elected to close them before the government announced it, because we didn't like the way things were shaping up. Mm-hmm. And we had a enormous team effort to get that stock back to our centre, where we were able to amp up hugely our digital proposition through some nimble thinking and really committed teams. We were able to figure out how to work safely, how to deal with the huge surge in online response. I mean, we're talking, 500, 600% change on the previous year.
Wow.
And whatever business systems you put in, it's difficult to envisage that. But we navigated our way through that, and we collectively felt tighter and more together as a team because we'd faced down that kind of terrible business challenge and found that we were made of creative stuff, we were made of determined stuff, and it's made the business stronger as a result. Also, we knew that there were farmers up and down the island that were relying on us to take in their wet cacao, which is how we work with the farmers in our Engaged Ethics program. Keeping that going and keeping the cash payments going to our island farmer partners was essential. So we were really proud that we were able to do that all the way through. And then in Japan and the USA, it was a sort of similar story. We actually made it onto the national evening news, Fuji News.
Oh, well done. How brilliant. A really powerful team. You're obviously very good at recruiting.
Well, one of the things I've learned is, and I've been really helped on this by a couple of our non-executive directors that we have in the business. So Andrew Geary and Greg Hodder in particular, who have really pointed out the importance of just getting the best people you can in a business, irrespective of if it's sort of inconvenient or you haven't got exactly the right role for them right now. Go for raw talent that, just instinctively excites you. You just meet people and you think, wow, I just want them in a business. And that had held me back previously, where I'd been, I suppose, more careful. And now I've taken a few more risks with it and just getting people with the right values, the right attitude, and then the magic happens, or the magic can happen.
Has your purpose changed with the business, Angus, from the time, and we mustn't forget Peter, he seems very elusive, but he is a major player because he's your co-founder. But has your purpose changed?
I think probably not hugely. What we've become a lot better at is articulating what our purpose is and realizing that to stand the best chance of delivering the purpose, we have to say no to some things. So when we created the Hotel Chocolat brand, that was the time that we started to really articulate what the purpose was and what the values of the business were. And that it wasn't a huge change from what we were doing previously. It was more just a slight sharpening and a better articulation of it, really.
I'm just going to skip back a bit, actually, Angus, and look at food waste and food surplus, because there thankfully is a real awareness in this arena. And we've had the founders of the Olio app and London City Harvest on the show recently, who are helping to redistribute food surplus. Do you have a lot of surplus with Hotel Chocolat and near to out of date products or rejects? What happens to them?
In the normal course of our business, we've become pretty good at forecasting and we're very careful to keep the stock aligned to what our customers want from us. So no, we have quite a low level, but when we do, we really hate to generate food waste. It's complete anathema to us, and we love the Japanese concept of motenai, which means the utility of zero waste. So that's a really strong concept, and we really like that, and that's why we use the cacao shells, for example, when we're making our chocolate, to distill into gin, or to put into some of our exfoliating beauty products. All the way down the line, we really try and think about how we can make value out of every single bit of the cacao bean and the overall products that come from it. So when we do have pockets of stock, we have a product called Ugly But Good, which is a translation of the Italian, I think it's Italian cake, looks like like an English rock cake or something. It's really gnarled and everything, but it's absolutely delicious, and it's beautiful, and it's absolutely delicious. I should say, not but. And those sell very well because our customers know that it's a bit of a job lot of whatever we've got that's a misshape or whatever.
But still tastes absolutely delicious.
Tastes great. Yeah, absolutely. And so when we have unexpected pockets of stock, which were not part of the plan, like in the lockdowns, we find inventive ways to make sure they go to the right people. And in the first lockdown, we invited the whole NHS and Blue Light emergency services to become honorary members of the Chocolat employee discount scheme, which means you get 50% off anything we do. And that was just a thing that we thought, right, how can we creatively, figure this out, but also do some good at the same time? And it was hugely well taken up. I mean, we had nearly 100,000 parcels delivered into the NHS, for example.
Wow. I think everybody needed chocolate. They're going to be needing it again. And Angus, with addressing sustainability on the, obviously within the cacao industry, the communities there, as well as packaging, so there must be huge amounts of packaging. What is Hotel Chocolat doing to address this?
Yeah, well, if we start with packaging first of all, and our Planet Pledge is that we will have 100% of our packaging recyclable or reusable by the end of 2021 was our initial pledge, but the COVID has made us push that out 1 year. So we're saying by the end of 2022 now, which was, I didn't really like, but we had to do it. We're into the 90s, so we're nearly 95%, very roughly.
That's
of our
brilliant.
Packaging meets that requirement. The difficult elements of packaging are flexible films, where you have laminated layers, and there's a disconnect between the way curbside recycling works and the municipal waste sorting depots and that type of complicated laminated film. So we're joined up to the Plastic Pact, and we're active members there to try and find better ways. And in the meantime, we will take any flexible film from any chocolate brand into any Hotel Chocolat, and we collect it, and then it comes back to our central warehouse, and we sort it, and we make sure that it's professionally recycled. So it's not perfect, but it's a workaround at the moment. So that's what we're really focused on. Watch this space, but we're nearly there, and this is a matter that is of the utmost importance for our team. It's the number one thing, together with ethics for people, for farmers, and for the way we deal with our planet.
Angus, do you ever allow yourself time to look at what you've achieved and have that sort of pinch me moment? Do you know what I mean by the pinch me moment, where you just think, wow, I'm going to have to pinch myself. I can't believe it.
I mean, I'm incredibly lucky to be able to do what I love, and I'm a great believer in the maxim of find something you love doing, and you never work a day in your life. And that's the way I feel. I really, love the team I work with, the adventures of Hotel Chocolat. We really feel that we've got a long way to go. I used to say we're 2 chapters through, a book of 10 chapters, but we're probably 3 chapters through now. But I mean, that's how far we want to go, and there's a lot yet to do. But I leap out of bed in the morning. I really excited about all the stuff we get up to, and I'm very lucky to be in this position, very privileged. And yeah, I can't think of another thing I'd really like to do apart from maybe being a film producer, but
Yeah, that would be
one day.
exciting.
Yeah.
But Angus, thinking about it, because you've been married, your wife Libby has been with you through the whole journey, and all your children that you've had and everything. How have you managed to balance being an entrepreneur, being really driven, pushing on with a company that is just growing and growing, and spending time with your family? Has that been challenging at times?
Yeah, it has. And, Libby and Peter's wife, Edwina, have made huge sacrifices in allowing us to sort of get on and play with our train set. But, Libby's been involved in the business all the way through, as you say, and an amazing sort of counsel and a great analyst. Her brain is wired in a different way to me. So when we go on big walks at the weekend, I'm allowed to download what's going on, and I just get amazing advice and ideas from Libby. So she's very connected with the business, and we did a big trip over to Japan and spent 3-4 weeks there in last summer. So the feeling of being part of a business family is a way to help understand why there's like a big call on my time, for example. But keeping everything in balance is absolutely vital, and it's definitely hard when you're an entrepreneur to strike that right. And I haven't always done that, but I think I'm getting better. But you have to ask Libby if that's true or not.
Well, it sounds like you have a really special partnership, and I think that is wonderful. It's fantastic. Do you think your children or Peter's children would get involved with the business? Do you see it as a sort of generational?
What we don't, and Peter and I made that decision right at the beginning. Because we're 50-50, and that type of partnership really works with a tight bond of we two. Once you start introducing other family members in, it's more difficult to keep it going and keep it balanced. So our perspective on this is that we want our children to be able to make their own minds up on what they want to do, and to help support them in their ideas with advice, and that seems to have got off to a good start. So family businesses can work very well, but in our particular case, we didn't want to build a family business. We wanted to build a brand, and I'm really pleased with. I've got a daughter Phoebe and a son Fergus, and they're doing very adventurous and things that they love as well. So I think hopefully Libby and I have been able to create an environment where creativity is supported and risk taking is supported.
Well, if it's like your dad and you, they clearly will have an entrepreneurial dollop in their DNA to do something creative and successful.
Yes. I think you could say that could be the case.
What have you learned, Angus, about yourself since you've had the business and grown with it?
I know what I'm interested in, and I try to make sure that the things that I'm not naturally interested in, I've got really, really good people around me who are interested in that, so that we can be a diverse team, and we can be effective, and just respecting that different people think in a different way, their brains work in a different way, and I like to make fast decisions. I like to work quickly. Other people like to reflect on things and come back, and I've learned to value that and give people a bit more time to be able to come up with things.
What do you think has challenged you most so far, and what have you learnt from that challenge?
The big guiding principle that I use and I like to encourage in a business is we just get better every day, and as long as we're progressing on all the things that are important to us, then we don't have to do it overnight. We can have minor setbacks. We can have major setbacks as long as we've learned something big from it, and ultimately we keep our big plans on track, our big values on track. Then it doesn't matter. You've got to accept and expect that in a world of adventure and a world of different agendas, this is going to happen. And if you're trying new things, if you're trying difficult things, you can't expect it to be a complete shoe-in immediately on every single thing.
No, just do the best that one can, I think, as long as one's trying one's best.
Yeah, and perseverance and
resilience, robustness.
That's it.
Okay, so quick fire round before we tuck into the chocolate, which I have been waiting for. Angus probably has too, because I think he's a chocoholic, obviously. Optimist or pessimist?
Optimist.
Introvert, extrovert, or a mix of them, which is called an ambivert?
I used to be a mix, but I think I've turned into an extrovert, I'm afraid.
Perfectionist or non-perfectionist?
I think non-perfectionist with a perfectionist medium-term agenda.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Okay, so now this is the chance. Angus, have you got your chocolate ready? I have to say that Angus's team sent me 2 whopping great boxes of chocolate, because I said I need to have the chocolate that we're going to try on the show. And I was religiously just going to open the box live as we talk and tuck in for the first time. But I have to say that I have eaten 25 of the 27 chocolates in the box. But I have kept the one that Angus wanted to share and chat about. So Angus, I'm about to tuck into Going Nuts. Tell the listeners why we are tucking into Going Nut.
Well, there's something about the alchemy of cacao and hazelnut in particular. And roasted hazelnut has a sweet note, a sort of like a malty note that just harmonizes so amazingly well with cacao. And the thing I particularly like about Going Nuts is that you've got that really working with 2 whole hazelnuts and a thick layer of praline that's made with hazelnut as well. And the other dimension is our super milk chocolate, which is a dark milk and 65% cacao, so it's restrained on sweetness. It's loaded up with loads of nut, good vegetable based plant fat, nut fat, and this amazing crunch and then melt.
Yeah, it's all the textures, Angus, isn't it? It's biting into the hazelnut, then you get that soft praline, and then you have the hard outer shell. And it's really delicious. And I have to say that when I opened the box of chocolates, I thought, wow, this is going to be one massive sugar fix. I was absolutely amazed that although they look, I mean, they still are sinful. Chocolate is sinful, but I don't care. They are not overly sweet. They end on a very clean note. And that, I think, is really impressive. And they are very Moorish, and this one is. And I'm recording this in a room where I'm freezing to death. So actually the bit of chocolate has given me a bit of energy and va-va-vum. Angus, you're going to be put back to work again, I'm afraid. You're judge of the Great British, or one of the judges of Great British, the Entrepreneur Awards. What do you think defines a true entrepreneur? Because I think that entrepreneur often has become the sort of new word like luxury. Everything was suddenly luxury. Everybody's defined as an entrepreneur. To me, you are, because you're a pioneer. But what do you think defines an entrepreneur?
First of all, I think it's really welcome that people who are starting enterprises, even if it's just themselves or have an aspiration, a bravery to try and to do something, to live their dreams. I really admire that, and it's good that in the public's perception that has become more respected than it used to be. Previously, unless you were a barrister or a doctor or a banker, to be in kind of business was slightly turn the nose up sort of time. But I think there's definitely been a sea change in that, which is great, and that's encouraging younger people to get into it as well. And I when I do talks, I'm amazed at the ambition, the enterprise, the creativity that's just out there, which is really great to see. But an entrepreneur is anybody that brings together different elements to try to create something out of nothing. And for me, that's it.
You don't see it as flipping it on its head into success, because that's what people used to say I was an entrepreneur, and okay, I had a lot of drive and I was resilient, but for my chocolate business, I didn't flip it. I didn't take it to where I really, really dreamed of it going. So therefore, that to me is where I would say I was a small business owner. Do you see what I mean? And yet my mindset was one of an entrepreneur.
Amelia, no, I don't think there's an overlay of success or not success, because
interesting.
You then have to introduce the idea of, well, over what period of time are you measuring it?
Yeah.
And how can somebody could create a business that's phenomenally successful for 3 years, and then it's it stops because it's based on something that's not enduring or long term. Similarly, you could take chapters in our business history where you could look at us and you could say, what are you guys doing? You're going nowhere. Your business isn't actually in a great place. So I think the perseverance, the hope is vital. And an entrepreneur is a person. It's not, you can't judge a person by one of their projects. It's your life. If you want to be an entrepreneur, how many goes can you have at ultimately making it work in a way that you want?
Hopefully loads.
Loads is the answer. As many as you can fit into a lifetime, and as long as you don't harm other people by getting there, then there's no downside to that, and it's difficult. So no, I think it's just an entrepreneur, somebody brings things together to try and create something out of nothing.
Angus, I'd love to know your thoughts on the words success and failure and what they mean to you.
Success can be judged by other people or by you, and I think ultimately it's the only thing that matters is your own judgment on success, and that may be the same as other people's opinions or may not be, but drawing it back to the opinion that really counts, it's you. And living a successful life means living a good life. And being, for example, in Chocolat, we say, look, our mantra is to be brave and be kind. So being brave means coming up, contributing, speaking up, calling out bad behavior, being brave, actually making yourself count. And being kind means, well, be kind to somebody if they've tried to be brave and they've made a bit of a fool of themselves or whatever. It's that the two things together have really caught the imagination of our team in Chocolat, and it's referenced a lot. So I think success measured by you is the most important thing, and then failure. Well, clearly there are, failure does exist, but again, the terms of failure and the period of time that it's measured over, and whether it's in a business sense or a personal sense or an ecological sense, or there's so many different ways of defining failure. And I'm a great believer that failure can be reversed, and there's always hope that in the seeds of what might be deemed to be failure, there's often a way out of it, a way to improve it and get back to something good again.
We are now going to head into just a little bit on your well-being, because I feel that's really important to anyone running their own business, is to remember to look after themselves. In fact, this week I was reading about that you can detect stress. They're looking at detecting stress in earwax. And apparently you can also detect how much stress you have going on from your hair as well. It's I think it's the stress hormone cortisol. But it's amazing how much development people are now doing into stress. Angus, how do you handle stress, and where does it affect you?
The thing that triggers stress for me is if I've got a plan and it risks being thwarted in some way. And that's just, because, I suppose in my own mind, I've gone further on the plan. I already think it's sort of like formed and it's there. And if somebody tries to thwart me on it, it's, it's like taking 15 steps back. And part of it is because I haven't done a good enough job of explaining what I'm trying to do or bringing people along with me in every case. So I've become better at that, but it still does trigger, a stress reaction. And I've found the best way to do that is just to talk and not bottle it up at the earliest opportunity with whoever it is or whoever they are. And then very quickly it just goes away. And it's quite often about miscommunication rather than being, fundamentally different in other ways. So I like to stay healthy. I do, lots of sport, like to get outside. I eat healthily. We eat a lot of cacao all the time, which, imbues a feeling of sort of power and strength. I'm a real believer in what happens when you have 100%, unsweetened cacao, for example, just made into a drink, like with water. Drinking one of those every day is way better than coffee. I have coffee as well, I must admit, but it's very good as an overlay to coffee. And I think it's a good sense of humour. So Peter and I love, like a black sense of humour. So when we've been up against it and different things, humour is just so good at finding ways to talk about difficult things or putting things into context. So I'm very lucky. I've got a very supportive ecosystem around me, and whenever I've had stress measured, it's not particularly high, but it does come from time to time, and I'm aware of that. But I'd encourage everybody to find their own ways to sort of deal with it.
Are you good with sleep, Angus? And if you're not, what do you do if you wake up and you feel fully alert?
I'm normally very good. I'm normally good with sleep. I like to get enough, and I try to avoid looking at devices in the evening, and I know that can keep me awake. And if I do wake up because something's weighing on my mind or something's just, how the brain sort of works overnight and it just suddenly clicks on something, that does happen, rarely, but when it does, the best thing for me is just to get up and get on with it, and then, tough it out for that day and then catch up the next night.
And Angus, do you have a book or a song that you could share with us?
The one that I found that I've referred back to quite frequently is the Sapiens book.
Oh, yes, it's in my bookshelf.
It's deals with effectively brands in a very kind of ancient history way. Why is Homo sapiens different from other sapiens types that emerged at the same time? And it's this ability to have a collective imagination of a thing, which could be a nation, it could be a political party, a religion, or a brand. And that was quite illuminating to read, that it's so deep rooted in us, that it's the foundation of sort of our ability to organize ourselves, and how that relates to a branded family was very interesting to read.
So Angus, what little bite-sized piece of advice would you give anyone who is planning to start up their own business?
I would say if you're hesitating, err on the side of doing it, because that's often the biggest impediment. Waiting until literally all the stars are aligned before you make a start, and that can be a never wait, because things don't typically totally click into place. You have to just sort of get going and then make the rest of them click into place. So that was the first thing. And I think the other thing is being really creative and in the early days of not spending money on the wrong things. And, that can be splashing out on, some essential office gear to try and put off the day that you have to go and make your first sale, for example.
Yes. Or equipment, some
first.
shishi bit of equipment that you just think. I remember I bought a fridge for chocolate truffles that cost me $8,000. It never worked, and I never really used it because I didn't really do truffles for very long. But it is that thing.
We've all done that, but it's and it's a way of stalling for time before you actually do the thing you've got to do, which is my idea actually going to work, and how do I know? Well, find a way to get in front of some real customers, which could be, physically or digitally, or you could pretend you're really in business and actually not be in business, which we did.
That sounds interesting.
To get a live read, you could just print up some notepaper and go through all the moves of, pitching something, but actually you're not actually in business yet, but you haven't told anybody that. And it's a good way of live testing if your idea is going to work.
That, I think, is a very, very wise gem. I would take that and put it in your pocket, because I think that is fantastic. Angus, finally, the podcast is called Hope and Patience. Where have you had to have hope, and where have you had to hang on to dollop loads of patience?
Well, hope is, has always been there, and I don't think I could live without hope being there. I mean, it's just ever present. I'm very lucky that it's just, a fixture. It's a bedrock. And patience. I haven't got a lot of patience, I think. That's a difficult one. And I struggle with that.
Do you think with age that, I struggle with it, and it's my middle name, but do you think that with age one gets more patient?
I'm not sure whether it's a good thing to have patience, to be honest. If you want to be an entrepreneur, and a guy I respect very much said that he has noticed that people who are entrepreneurs tend to have a visceral sense of urgency, which can be uncomfortable to be around, and can sort of burn you out if you're not careful as well. But it really made me think. I love that phrase, a visceral sense of urgency.
Yes.
So that's why I think that patience may not be, a good thing if you want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and you want to crack on. So where can our listeners, who are scattered all over the world, find your yummy chocolate, and also keep in check with what you're, keep up to speed with what you are all doing?
The best way to keep up to date is on our website. So in America, we've got a dedicated American site that does local American deliveries, and obviously UK, chocolat.com. And in Japan, we're up to 10 locations now, which we're very excited about.
Wow, that's brilliant. I'm so envious of that. I really wanted to crack Japan.
Yeah, we love Japan, and it's just going to be the next big adventure for us.
Well done, Angus. Sure. I think that's brilliant. And also, you've got an app, haven't you?
We have, which is on any of the app stores. So if you search Chocolat, you can find it there. And we have a VIP rewards app as well. So all that's really important to us. But no, social media on all the usual platforms, and particularly interesting content coming out of what we're doing in St. Lucia. We've got a great and vibrant social sort of story that's unfolding there, with amazing imagery and all the ins and outs of being cacao farmers. So no, there's a lot going on.
I know, we haven't even touched on that. You have to come back on the show. But Angus, it's all the Hotel Chocolat handles, is it, for St. Lucia, or they?
Yes. So if you search Hotel Chocolat on your preferred platform, So if
It'll
it's
come up
something-
with all the options.
Yeah, Instagram. It'll show you all the different accounts that we've got, and you can pick which one you like best.
Yeah, well, the St. Lucia one I think will be amazing. So I would definitely be following that one. Angus, I would like to say a huge thank you, because this is one of the busiest days with our lockdown happening. For you to spare your time with us today has been amazing. And thank you for coming on the show.
Total pleasure, Amelia. And I remember when we first met, and all the times that we've met since then, and wish you all the best. And this is you're really good at this, by the way. So I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you, Angus. I mean, I remember just very quickly a time where we sat on a panel for the Academy of Chocolate, and I sat next door to you, and I said, "You don't have any problems with cash flow," naively, and I have always remembered it. And you said, I think I probably would do, because I employ 700 people. So this was years ago. And it made me think, wow, big companies also have problems with cash flow, which now I realise is totally obvious. But what I love about you, Angus, is that you are so approachable, and you are a really inspirational CEO and co-founder. So I'm sure Peter is equally lovely. But thank you. It's just, you're my sort of one of my chocolate heroes, because
He's nicer, in fact.
I'm sure he isn't, but it is that thing where you speak to someone who I have studied you in the business IP center, your brand. I've tried to work out, everything and absorb what you have done. And it's just incredible. And it is so tough, the chocolate industry. The margins are so slim, and it's just amazing. So thank you, Angus, very, very much.
Amelia, real pleasure. And until the next time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, before I go, it's time for my book recommendation and quote for this episode. The book has to be a chocolate one, The True History of Chocolate by Sophie D. Coe, who's an anthropologist and food historian, and Michael D. Coe, who is professor of anthropology out in the US. It's a really good methodical history of cocoa, and it is superbly referenced and sourced. So I would really recommend it. The quote is from Coco Chanel. Don't spend time beating on a wall, just transform it into a door. A huge thank you for finding the show. I hope you enjoyed the chat. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episode. And if you're enjoying the show, it would be truly fab if you could rate and review it, or even share it with a mate. Any book recommendations, quotes, songs can be found in the show notes and on the website too. Until the next time, however tough the times get, keep that inner sparkle you have.
Hope and Patience with Amelia Rope. Join the conversation at hopeandpatience.co.uk. Find Amelia on Facebook at Hope and Patience, or on Twitter and Instagram at Amelia_Rope.